So, so we'll be discussing about political speech today, how to analyze political speech, and then how it falls in rhetorical communication, about which you have already learned, perhaps in the very first semester. Right, if you haven't learned about rhetorical communication, I can extensively deal with what is rhetoric. It is not just about a talk when you say rhetoric. And profounder of rhetorical communication is the Aristotle. That's how we understand, right? The communication, it is also passed through that channel and also to intended receiver when there is an asymmetry of relationship. He usually says he focused upon the asymmetry of relationship between the communicator and those who it is intended to communicate, or the receiver. And he also spoke about the rhetoric. Now rhetoric is related to persuasion and convincing skill, and it is different from propaganda. Okay, so when we talk about political speech includes many linguistic diversities. We actually see it includes metaphors, it includes anaphora, it includes hyperbole at times. Okay, it also includes rule of three. So, certain linguistic tools which are being used in political speech, which we can analyze to understand the message of a leader, message of an activist, message of a speaker. So here we are not intending only to analyze the speech of a politician, you say. So we are intending to analyze the speech of political actors. When you say political actors, we include here all the activists and right-based activists, even anyone who is intending to speak for the rights of the people. Okay, may gender rights, environmental rights, or any right-based issues. Okay, we're fighting for our cause, apart from the politicians. So we'll be analyzing the speech, and there is also one theory that is called speech act theory. Speech act theory is propounded by Charlie as well as Austin, J.N. Austin, in 1962. It was being propounded, and accordingly, both of them have classified how to evaluate the speech on the basis of certain elements. So they have categorized speech into certain elements and help us to classify the nature, the type of the speech. Okay, so here when you say rhetorical communication, rhetoric basically a faculty of observing the means of persuasion in order to persuade the intended audience. So that's how we understand rhetoric. Rhetoric is not all about talk. Okay, it also involves the ethos, logos, and pathos. So we have that three element you might have heard of, which is the heart of any persuasive communication: ethos, logos, and pathos. So ethos, logos, and pathos. When you say ethos, ethos is basically dealing with this ethical component of any kind of speech act. So the integrity of the speech, the word that you have chosen, the vocabulary that you have chosen, and also linguistic dexterity, which is also part of, you see, this ethos. You talk about appropriate word, it is also related to elegance. At times when you say ethos, it is all about integrity of the speech and accuracy. This is also part of ethos. When you give the information, you are supposed to be clear and accurate which is to be based on the logos. Logos is basically the rationale of any kind of speech. Part of this rhetoric, we can say that logos will back up any information. So when we say something, you need to have backup information through examples, through evidences, through proof, through statistics, through figures. You will back up that information, and that is basically logos, that rationale behind any kind of argument. So it focuses upon the argument of any speech. So what it is being focused upon. Then last one is pathos. Last pathos is all about emotions, your experience. Then appealing to take some actions, appeal to cognitions, appeal to prompting an action of the audience is the pathos. And most of the, you see, political speech, especially you see the politician speech, are emotionalized nowadays. So emotionalization is also one characteristics of political speech nowadays. So more than logos and ethos, they focus upon the emotional aspect, the pathos aspect. Pathos aspect is also related to accuracy, that the pace, that pitch, the tone, eloquence, energy, mood. So certain elements are there to understand the speech, and it is important for you also to analyze the speech and using those elements. Now you see, uh, Elizabeth, that Queen Elizabeth, it is also often said that she herself sat a time, a man um, in decision and women in spirit. Okay, so and she made a wonderful speech during the Spanish invasions. So we actually find many important speakers, and old speech were different. If you look at Hitler's speech, it is more about pathos oriented. So you won't get to find any kind of like logos, and ethos is there, if its integrity is there. But again, when you use the technique of propaganda tools or propaganda in the speech, then you see that often it reduces the integrity element. Now you see that it is about rhetoric, and rhetorical communication originated in 5th century BC. It is not something very new. So we talk about rhetorical communication during the time of Aristotle. So Aristotle first discussed about rhetorical communications and importance of rhetoric, and Aristotle also said that rhetoric is also a blessing of sophist or a teacher community. Sophists are basically traveling teachers. They're traveling teachers, they will teach people how to argue. So in Athens, in city states, we had those traveling teachers who will teach citizens, instruct citizens how to argue. So citizens has a role. You see, earlier citizen had a role in democracy, that they are supposed to take part in political discourse. So when you are talking about political discourse, you were talking about importance of rhetoric. So what is rhetoric? It is about public speaking. So each and every citizen is supposed to speak for himself. So whenever there is a construction of wall, he is supposed to speak. He is supposed to not see. He is supposed to speak for himself, because there was also a gender binary. Women are not supposed to be the citizens. So women are relegated. The status of women is being relegated during the Greek city-state. So you see that whenever there is a construction of wall, construction of a road, then also citizen was supposed to speak. Whenever any new law come, laws about olive grower, you say, and then you need to speak about the importance of law, and also some despicable elements, if it is aspect which are being found, in order to think about your own livelihood. It is very important to speak about that particular law, the merits and demerits about the law. If a country has decided to send a troop for for war, then also you are the one, if you are the one who is going to fight and you will take the decision, then you are supposed to speak in favor or against. So that was the rule, because there was no police, there was no lawmaker as such, there was no counselor which can represent, who can represent, or an institutions as such who can represent the views during the Athenian city states, represent the citizens. So citizens were trained in rhetorical communication. It is about public speaking, and whatever they speak, whatever they spoke during that period of time was substance. So they focus on the function, what can be acted upon. So whenever they speak something, so it has to prompt some action. So they also say that whenever they speak, it prompts some actions. And the specificity of the rhetorical communication at that point of time was that uh, mm, mm, this communication has to be made at moment's notice. Okay, at moment's notice, they're supposed to communicate, they're supposed to speak and speak logically. So there is also an argumentative structures, they're supposed to put their arguments, and that's why they are citizens. They are called citizens just because they do have the ability to speak in front of the public. So the ability to for public speaking or speaking in front of the public. Now you see that Plato has denounced the sophist. He hated sophists, the community of sophists. According to Plato, Plato said that this sophist community, they are speaking for sake of speaking. So it should not be like that. They do not have the graphs over the issues, and they are simply speaking. So he found that there are also sophists. They simply spoke without having graphs over any issues, because of this pressure, because of the social pressure, because of also the institutional pressure. At that time, we did not have a kind of legislature, executive, and judiciary. This kind of institution didn't take place, but you do have a structure, societal structure. So social pressure and the societal structure emanate that institution on citizenship, that you are the one who is supposed to speak, and they speak whenever it requires, but most of the time they do not have graphs over their issues. So he highlighted that issues, that citizens should not speak just for sake of speaking. Okay, they should need to place an argument with facts, with examples, with proper figures, with evidence. So that's he has highlighted. Okay, manifestation of the rhetoric. That's what we say. It should not simply prompting someone, appealing to emotions, but also you need to have a manifestations of whatever you have spoken. You are supposed to have that manifestations. So what Plato said, we get to find in later time in the work of Austin's, in the work of Charlie, when they devised out the political, not political speech, speech act theory. So with the help of speech act theory, we can uh, analyze the political speech. Okay. Then we also see that Plato had mentioned about five, especially four or five nature of that speech. One is the very verbal nature, what we utter. We report, we state, right? And verbal is something which is also equated with authority. So whenever he said that any speech is all about being verbose and verbal is the essential characteristics of speech, then he said that speech has to be expositional. Expositional is one element of the speech. It was uh, been delineated by Plato. Plato said that one characteristics of speech is expositional. So it exposed to the fact, the reality, exposed to the reality. That means that the proof we need, the backup. That's what we have actually talk of, the logos element, that backup, that arguments, right, that evidences, that facts, figures, that exposed to back up that informations. Then he also spoke of the hierarchical nature, hierarchical, which you actually put the speaker in a privileged position whenever he remains the speaker, he will always be at a privileged position, establish himself at a privileged position because he demand attention of those who is listening. So he said that this in that way it is also about establishing an asymmetrical relationship. Okay, but at the same time, rhetorical communication focuses on two-way and dialogue. Let me tell you, unlike the propaganda. Although you see that many scholars have critically analyzed or explained or looked at rhetorical communication through critical lens and found that it has certain element which is very asymmetrical. As Plato has also said that hierarchical is one element of rhetorical communication, not rhetorical communication, rhetoric. So it actually establishes a asymmetrical relationship, asymmetrical flow of information between the sender and the receiver. And only citizen can also speak. But you see the appetite class and even slave cannot speak. Okay, so that was also decided in city-state of Greek. In that way, we say there is an asymmetrical flow of relationship in rhetorical communication. But when we compare rhetorical communication with propaganda, then you see that rhetorical communication is actually two-way. When we compare it, it's a two-way. Propaganda is the highest, most asymmetrical. Is a communication approach which establishes that asymmetrical relationship. Okay, and then discrete is also another. Discrete is another characteristics or a nature of the rhetorical communication or speech. You say, according to Plato, because it happens in separate time and space, discrete nature. So it cannot, you see, buzz out everywhere. A speech, when there is a speech, there has to be a time and there has to be a space. So it is also constrained to time and a space, and that space will give that speech a particular character. That timing, that typical timing, will give that speech a typical character. Okay, and hence it is discrete in nature. So this is what Plato has discussed about rhetorical communication. And apart from that, what we have got from our legacy scholar, those are the legacy scholars. Okay, what we have got about the speech act is about this verbal character, expositional character, and later in Sarli's classification, the same characteristics of speech act we could find. Okay, in Sarli's classification, we could actually find that there are certain element like we have locutionary element, illocutionary and parlocutionary element that was being highlighted by Sarli, and J.L. Austin in 1962 has highlighted another certain element which are also equivalent to this legacy characteristics and attributes of speech act theory. J.L. Austin has highlighted about this, you see, the asserting or assertive element. So when a speaker is speaking something, he is asserting a claim which is already there, which is existing, which is being reported. So he is also reporting something, he is stating something. Okay, this is related to illocutionary part. Okay, one is locutionary part, that is locutionary, illocutionary and parlocutionary. Locutionary, when we utter a word, anything you utter, that is amount to locutionary. You utter, your utterance, okay, is locutionary. Okay, illocutionary is about asserting something. So asserting, being assertive or assertive element has propounded by Austin. Okay, Austin discuss about assertive element, and Charlie discuss about, we actually see Charlie discuss about locutionary, illocutionary, and parlocutionary. Okay, I'll write it down later. So when you talk about the illocutionary, illocutionary is also related to that claim. So, what kind of claim? What kind of assertion? We are talking about assertion. What kind of assertion is that? Is that speech is expressive? If that speech is commissive in the sense that it involves some promises, it involves an expression of emotions, or it involves a declaration or a direction. So speech can be assertive, speech can be directive, speech can be commissive, promise oriented, speech can be declarative when you declare a war. Okay, so these are some of the characteristics of elocutionary speech. Okay, so locutionary, and parlocutionary. Parlocutionary is the intended effects on the audiences. So when we talk about the audiences who are at the receiving end, whether they are moved or not, whether they have taken some decisions, and whether they have changed their behavior, the speech which they have exposed to have changed their behavior or not, then we found that that is related to parlocutionary act, that effects of the speech on the audience. Okay, so when you actually study any speech act, you are supposed to find out uh, the nature of that speech act. Okay, nature, the elocutionary element. Something is being asserted. You see, you can also come up with some example. When we talk about a populist leader, we do have different kind of populist leader. About populism, briefly we have discussed, I guess. So we also have a populist leader, which is personified around personality cult. So we have different kinds of populism. Suppose we have leftist populism, rightist populism, centrist populism, welfareistic oriented populism. We also have regional populism. So on that basis, we could actually find out how it is a approach, political approach, which put politics as a struggle between the pure people against the corrupt elites. Right. So that is a kind of populism that we get to find everywhere. And you see that speech are also driven towards this populism nowadays. And because it has certain promises, it also has, you see, that relational component, mental component. We have some behavioral, existential component. Okay, I'll come into it. Uh, and also you see verbal component. So when we talk of various component, okay, be it relational component of a speech, okay, this is related to the identity issues, relational component, how we relate yourself with the audience. So suppose you make a speech, you can actually see it is related to how you relate to the audience. So it is about to be or to are, you relate to the audience. And how will relate, suppose if Himanta Biswa Sarma has already said that our opponent are Pakistanis. So how they're relating it to the audience, they create a relational establishment, okay, saying that opponents are Pakistanis. So that is a kind of statement which also come under us versus them. That is also a strategy of populism. Okay, and you also see how it is related, relating opponent to Pakistani. That is a relational statement. It is also focusing on the identity issues, identity of the opponent. So that relational statement, we say, that is a part of elocutionary or assertion, or the statement which is being made by the leader. Then we see the existential component of any kind of speech. Suppose if say that immigrants are threat to our culture, something which is which exist, and which exist over the years and for the time beings and needs immediate actions. So if they said that immediates are threat to our culture, or there will be a cultural extinction, in this speech you actually find we can have elocutionary statement relating to You see that existential process. So, in the speech act theories, uh, you are not supposed to make division uh, or three-phase classifications. You are also have many more aspects to understand in what way it is being stated. We say speech can be very directive. So, directive, you actually see a kind of worldview that a speaker has, and how he is relating it to the existing reality is very important. So, in each space, you actually find a kind of worldview of the speaker and his this worldview's association with the reality, and how he associate his worldview with the reality. That's what you will find, and based on that, what you will do, you will identify whether a speech is directive. If it is a directive, that means they want intended audience to uh, do some actions to change the behavior which will match to the direction that he has provided and also to the reality. That's how we understand that directives, any kind of order it is given. So I want you to do this. I want, even when asking for a vote, I want you to vote. I want you to go and slap someone. So that is a kind of direction. So a kind of reality that speaker is being created, okay, through his speech, and what you view and try to relate it and want intended audience to match to the reality he has created. Okay, so that is a kind of directions he is saying. And also directives, this is also directive elements of illocutionary speech. We also have a speech, you actually find declaration of the war. When you say declaration, declarative state also needs an authority to the speaker. Okay, a speaker simply, assert, claim. So in most of the speech, you only get element of assertion. You won't get element of declarations. Declaration is found in a person of authority who has an authority to declare something. Even a priest has an authority to solemnize a marriage or declare someone husband and wife. So like that, we're declaring someone to be in a position, giving a position to someone, you're declaring it. So declarative speech are different, and that is an element of the speech. We can also call it declarative speech. It is there. This is a part of even the assertion, the illocutionary part. You can find declaring a war. Okay, so you need to have an authority to declare a war. Right. So declarative speech is another element, and expressive speech is also there. When you say expressive, it is about sharing vision. Expressive is sharing vision, sharing emotion. I understand your pain. I understand the pain of the flood affected people of the Magic, you see. So, flood affected people of even Laura Sam. So, if we make a statement like this is basically expressive statement, understanding the pain and also sharing the same vision. So I will do, but here also again, you see, he or she hasn't make any kind of assertion. I'll do something. I'll take some steps. Is not being made. So you could actually see he has expressed his concern. So expressive, but he hasn't make any kind of commitment. So there is no commissive end. Commissive is a promise, coming up with promise. I'll create 1 lakh jobs, I'll create 2 lakh jobs. That's a promise. Okay, promise which he also match with the reality. He is promising, that that leader is promising, that the speaker is promising, and he has also the authority, and he has make a promise based on the reality, because he has studied the reality, he understands the emotions of the people, he has made a promise. So this is related to his action, how speech can be functional the same time. Okay, so like that way we could actually analyze speeches. Okay, speeches, you understood? Any question you have? Do you have any question? Okay, so in that way, you could analyze any speech, the kind of speech which is being delivered by politicians, by activists, the claims that they have made, different claims or statements. So any kind of statements are basically the claims. So in each speech, you will get some assertion only. And in one particular speech, you may not get any expression, you may not get any expressive element, commissive element, declarative elements, or directive elements. Only you will find the assertion, ऐसा भी हो सकता है. And in one particular speech, you can also find only the directive element when there are instructions, what you will do, what you will, and a command. So I'll do this and to match my action. So that is the directions. And in one kind of speech, you might also find the declaration or announcement. Announcement combination, combined with, or a combination of announcement and directives, a combination of even commission or promises and assertion, a combination of assertion and, you say, directions, combination of assertion and declarations. So you could find overlapping elements in one simple speech, or even a speech of a leader. So that's what you were supposed to find out. When it is being addressed, at what time it is being addressed, which is also important. Okay, who are the intended audience? So when we study critical discourse analysis, we also have a CDA. So critical discourse analysis is all about studying the discourse of politics. So speech check analysis is also a kind of critical discourse analysis when you analyze the discourse as micro, meso, and macro level. At micro level, you actually focus on the semantic and procedural element of the word. When you say semantic element, semantic, how conventional meaning of the words are being established. So it's all about a linguistic practice when you are talking about the speech. It is a linguistics practice, and how words are being placed. Okay, and whether conventional meaning of the words are being delivered or not. Semantic refers to conventional meaning of the word. Each word has a conventional meaning, and it is being delivered the way it is to be delivered. And there is also a pragmatic approach when word is used intentionally by the speaker to convey different meaning. That is called the pragmatic use of the word. So when you study a speech act or you study a speech, then you will try to find out the pragmatic use of word. You will also try to find the semantic use of word and those elements which are there in illocutionary part. Okay, in the assertion, in the statement, in the claims, that is the illocutionary part. Okay, when you say this is the very, you see, this is the very micro level understanding of a discourse, a political discourse. At meso level, we are addressing it to a targeted audience, right? We're addressing to someone. Our speech is addressing to someone, right? So here in meso level, we focus on the discursive element, means the channel which is used, the audience which are being used, the priorities of the audience. I have told you the voters' characteristics, voters' attributes, you see, in terms of political campaign. Okay? The voters' needs, voters' preferences, you say, if politician is delivering a speech. So it has to be discursive. In discursive, it includes the audience, intended audience. It will include the channel that is being used, which is also important. This channel, how it is being used. We also have a digital campaign, hashtag campaign, digital campaign. Apart from grassroots campaign is there, where we focus only on volunteers and cadre-based network. So volunteer, those cadre of the party, the network, they are involved in campaigning at ground level. So we also see the volunteer-based campaign, that grassroots campaign, digital campaign. So based on the this meso-level factors, we can decide the type of campaign even, you see. Okay, so these are linked phenomenon when we say. political speech, political campaign, or link phenomenon. In last two classes, I have discussed about political campaign, how to make a political campaign, but we didn't finish just because after that I had also problem related to butter issues and subsequent technical problem, because of which I could not continue. Okay, but it is also important to understand how to make a campaign, and speech is a very important part of a campaign. And there are also advertising agencies, they write speech for the political candidate, right? So the what they have emphasized upon, the kind of message they have focused upon is very very important. Okay, and you also see that okay, this is about the speech that you were supposed to analyze, and what is important is some of the this is called transitivity aspect of the speech. Now, apart from the elocutionary part, okay, discursive element, okay, that's where I discursive element is the meso level factor of the critical discourse analysis, where you actually studied the audience, what they have received from the speech, how have they taken that speech, positively they have taken, negatively they have taken that speech. Apart from studying the tone of the speech, pitch of the, the speech, and pace of the speech, so tone, that pitch, pace, these are also part of, you see, locutionary aspect. Locutionary, when you see the communication, the verbal aspect. Elocutionary is also, elocutionary is related to the inherent element in that speech, inherent element in one particular speech, and that parlocutionary is the effect of the speech on the audiences. Okay, so that's what you will be studying. So you see the tone of the speech, friendly tone, stand, or you also find a tone which is very promising, okay, very fearful tone. So you can find from the speech, and when you study the effects on the audience, they may be negative and the positive. And there are also other aspects, like which um, can be can be addressed, or which are being addressed, by the speaker. Okay, those are the aspects which you can highlight, and also a party's position on those aspects which are very important. Okay, so you could actually find that how a politician can emphasize upon their good points and emphasize upon the bad points of the opponent. How a politicians downplay their bad points, and also downplay the good points of the opponent, which we could find in the speech, and that could also be a part of discursive element. Okay, and at a macro level, we usually see the ideological uh, varieties or specificities of the political party. We actually find the message, the abject message is nationalistic orientations, or patriotism, nationalism, or communalism, so liberalism. So that is at macro level, the ideological orientation of the party, which is being disseminated through the speech. So that we can understand and we can study if you go deep into the critical discourse analysis, this analyzing the discourse of the speech. The ideological orientation is there at macro level, because it is at a higher level, because it will hegemonize any kind of discourse. So it is very important, ideological orientation of the party, and the speech, the kind of message which is being disseminated. There are certain technique also when they frame a message, and those technique could also be discussed in a political campaign as ad technique. We call it political advertising technique. So how message is being created? Okay, there are certain element. Propaganda itself is a tool to create a message. Propaganda is a tool. Propaganda is different from rhetoric just because propaganda is a tool and technique to manipulate the cognition of the people and to shape the behavior, to direct the behavior of the people. So it is a tool and a technique rather than substance. So rhetoric is about substance because it has an argument. So rhetoric about what is being delivered, but propaganda is more about how it is being delivered. So when you go for political campaign, speech is also focus and heart of any political campaign. So you find the kind of technique which is being used by the ad agency to send a message from the speech. Okay. So, in terms of propaganda, we also have certain techniques. Perhaps in last class we have discussed about name calling. So now you see regional populist and also nationalist, we see rightist populist have been using this name calling a lot. Name calling is a technique of propaganda, of constructing a message. Okay, so first, uh, you also need to know, or you say before you understand the techniques of propaganda, you need to know how propaganda is different from even persuasion. Persuasion is all about convincing, but again, few scholars also said that there is 1 ounce of reluctance or doubt in persuasion when it acts to shape your behavior, direct your behavior. But when you say convince, there is no reluctance, there is no ounce of doubt. So you are being convinced because you are being influenced by a speech or by an act or by declarations or directives or something. So you see that convince, persuaded, and propagandist and those who consume propaganda uh, have differences. Okay, so those differences are very important to understand. Okay, propaganda, origin of propaganda came from religion. It is also related to propagare. You see, propagare, promote the Roman Catholicism against the promotion of Protestantism. Okay, so it is against the promotion of Protestantism and to promote the Roman Catholicism. That was the origin of propaganda, and later we also said it is mixed with the statist approach, state politics. So religion is mixed with politics. So there, what you actually find that in first semester we have discussed about the sources of propaganda, right? That is white propaganda, grey propaganda, and black propaganda, based on the accuracy of the statement and the sources. Who is disseminating? If you can identify who is being disseminating, and the statement is also accurate, and even if it is biased, then it will be called white propaganda. If the statement is not accurate and source is also ambiguous, then it will be amount to black propaganda. And also grey propaganda lies in the continuum of black and of white, where at times sources are identified but the statements and the message is not accurate, and at times message is accurate but source is not identified. And hence we also have gay propaganda like that. But rhetoric is different. Rhetoric involves the two-way communication. It involves deliberations. Whenever you speak something, in a way, whenever you are speaking, you establish a hierarchical relationship. But in the very next moment, you invite participation. You invite counter argumentations. Okay, hence it is two-way. So it doesn't have much scope of asymmetrical relationship unless and until it invites participation from the people, and unless and until it is also being criticized, it is also being not only criticized, it is being added upon, or it is you might also say critically observe to add substance, more substance to it. Okay, and hence there is a difference between the propaganda and persuasion. Spin, you often say, spin doctor. Who are the spin? Spin doctor always put a favorable picture of an organization. Public relation officers are also spin doctor. You also see in even political organization there are spin doctors because they will put everything in a favorable light. They'll put the political scenario, they'll put the party agendas and about the reality in a favorable light, undermine the unfavorable element, negative element. So that's spinning it in favorable light. Okay, so it is also equated to persuader. So spinning, many people said that spin doctors are also propagandists, but many people say they are basically diplomat. You also say part of public diplomacy. They're trying to convince people. They are the brander, the nation brander. They are persuader. Okay, so like that way, we need to distinguish these two things. And when you talk about the discursive element of critical discourse analysis, then it is very important to understand the information processing and also schemata theory. So that how we actually process the information. So information is delivered. What one actor information is delivered, and then information is accessible or not accessible, in what way it will be accessible is very important. So after accessibility you will see that whether you can comprehend it, that is a literacy factor. Accessibility is different from literacy factor. Most of the time we equate both. But in information processing theory, which is propounded by McGuire, discuss about how information is being processed when the audiences, even the users, they exposed to the information. So they get the informations, they access the information. They are at a receiving end. They get it and they can comprehend it based on their literacy, functional literacy, and all. Huh? This is information processing theory. McGuire's information processing theory. This is the part of discursive element and aspect of CDA, critical discourse analysis, information processing theory. McGuire's, how we process the informations. Then you comprehend, then you may be convinced or may not be convinced. And if you are convinced, then you will have a different position. If you will not be convinced, then you will have a different position. So we will determine the position after you comprehend the information. So this is about information processing, a part of, like, that meso level aspect. We say micro level, very linguistic aspect, when you analyze only the linguistic elements, semantic and pragmatic aspect of the speech. At meso level, how it is being received, how information is being received by the audience. So you will see how information is being processed by the audience. So the help of the schemata theory of Darby's-Graeber schemata theory is also very, very important. Graeber schemata theory is very important. So schemata theory is important. It actually says that it refers to that the audiences understand the message or process the information based on the existing scheme of information in them. Existing scheme of information means based on the earlier experiences, based on the already stored information, the old information, they try to simplify the message. So in what way they actually take the message, take the information. So in you see that in internet era, we have abundance of information. So they're overloading, we're loaded with information, right? Overloading of information. And then you say that in that case, and even a person is also overloaded with many informations, but he or she will take that, they will take that information which is matching with the earlier experience. And each time new experience will come, new information will come, will have a connection and link to the old experience. on the basis of which he or she or they will try to simplify that information. And most often they will polarize, they will have a categorization of informations in order to accept it or adopt a stand or to determine a position. And hence, this schema, based on the schemata theory, how audience evaluates the message, we actually see what this message makers are doing, what these campaign makers are doing. They are trying to simplify the informations, and that is there, you see, in rule of three. These are some of the technique and the process, and in anaphora. So I'll tell you, these are some of the process and the technique which are being used to simplify the message. Suppose issue is bigger, but when there is a relational component, even a relational process, they're making a subjective issue uh, an objective one, or reducing a subjective issue to a very objective, like that a breakable, measurable, tangible element, so that people can take it, decide their stand. Okay, they could relate to their earlier experiences. Okay, so that is also a way to establish relationship with the audience. Are you getting? Okay, so it is actually based on schemata theory, and schemata theory helped to establish propaganda. Okay, Darby's Graeber schemata theory, the way audience evaluates the information helps to shape the propaganda, help to make a propaganda. We are talking about 7 technique of propaganda, name calling. It is all about gali galoz hum log karte hain na, name calling. So which has been the hate speeches generating against the opponent, calling someone Pakistan, and calling even journalist the urban Naxal who is supporting the opponent and all. Okay, creating an us versus them polarization among the people is name calling. It's a propaganda technique to influence the masses. It is also based on the information processing theory and schemata theory. How they process the information, you see the attributes of the voter, how they process the information. The more you fill them with this propagandist message, so they will take it, they will absorb it, and more they will also absorb based on their experiences. So earlier also, okay, he was being alleged as a Pakistani. Later also, the same that kind of claim may come. So, so this is a tendency. This will continue on and on. So you will also find out how it is equated with macro level character, that is ideational character, which is ideological. You see, which is ideological, which is uh, the structural. Okay, so you can equate it, and how you can equate it is important. Suppose you also see that leftist populism, it is based on mobilization of the masses against the capitalist. So the focus of the leftist populism is social democracy and socialism, and they focus upon mobilization of the masses against the capitalist. And they are focusing on welfare measures. They'll be focusing on measures taking to eliminate the poverty, right? Rightist propaganda is focusing upon the cultural majoritarianism. They are creating identity as an issue of division. So, because that is their ideology. Their ideology is cultural majoritarianism, or create a Hindu nation state, or cultural majoritarianism. So, they are bringing this identity issue in between to create a us versus them, effects, or the polarization among the audience. Then centrist populism is different. We talk about centrist populism. Then we find they are focusing not on leader but focusing on the corruption, transparency, etc., governance, centrist populism. So ideology at macro level, how it is working, you see. So you also identified a leader here. Himanta Biswa Sharma, Narendra Modi are from rightist populism. We have Indira Gandhi from leftist populism at the same time, although from Congressy. So the kind of populism she had once that was based on socialism, democratic socialism. So that was basically a leftist populism she carried out. Then we also have regional populism like Anti Ramarao focuses on the regional identity and regional culture, regional land rights, autonomy of the governing body, which we also find in Bodoland, in that UPPL leader. Hmm? So it's focusing on that regional identity more and more. That is a kind of populism. Hagrama Mohilari is very popular nowadays. So everybody started liking him, saying that he's such an honest and he's down to earth. He behaves in such a way. So that is a kind of populism. That is also revolved around the leader. Except centrist populism, you find the role of leadership cult in leftist, in centrist, in rightist populism. Okay, so here we actually work at highest level of, you see, at macro level of ideological like structure in understanding the political discourse. Huh. And this is also related to how message is being framed. Cards taking, that is highlighting the positive and eliminating the negative aspect of any organization, any policies, any institution, etc. So that is another propaganda technique. Bandwagon, which is there in almost all the rallies. So you are joining, so you also come. You see people in bulk are joining the rally, so you should also extend your support in any kind of rally. What is the purpose of rally? Is to ask for support, right? That's a bandwagon they're creating. Glittering generalities, the mama factor is a glittering generalities. We talk about Uncle Joy once. Uncle Joy, Stalin was called as Uncle Joy. Why Mamta Banerjee is called Didi? Even Sibraz Sohan from Madhya Pradesh is also called Mama. You know, and Mama image has a benefactor connotation as well as protector connotation. Mama is both a protector as well as benefactor. He is protector because he is protecting our land. He is also protecting us from illegal immigrations. That's the kind of image they're trying to create. And he is also one who is very decisive, who speaks emotionally, but at the same time he speaks decisively. Who is also providing us Arunodoy, who is providing us that Basundhara, etc., etc. So he's providing us so many schemes. So he's benefactoring that same way. The kind of image which is being creating around the mama is a glittering generalities. Okay, that's a propaganda technique. So glittering generality is a propaganda technique. After name calling, we also have a propaganda technique that is called glittering generalities. Okay, and we also have transfer. Transfer is all about the symbols which are being used. Saffronization, we often call it saffron color, that vitality, vibrance, we call it, right? The pride. Okay, saffronization, that saffron color denotes one political party. Okay, then we actually see the symbols of a political party itself that transfer the emotion to the people. So stick symbol transfer the emotion to the people once. Okay, that Hitler in Germany, that swastik, transfer the emotion. Like that way, if one political logos, political symbol can transfer the emotion to the people, so you can actually see that is also part of political propaganda. Plain folk, just folk attitude is a part of propaganda. Okay, the way you wear, we visit factories, we visit colleges, visit universities, visit those slums areas, and you also have a just folk attitude. What you eat, what you wear. You don't need VIPs and all. That is also a propaganda technique. So creating a just forgetitude. Okay. Then, how many we have? Do you have class now? Okay. So, so we'll discuss about it the next tomorrow. You'll have a vacation, and day after tomorrow, uh, you have. Okay. Any question? Question.